Chapter 16 has to do with long-term debt and lease financing. We're going to talk about some long-term debt, which is basically bonds, and we're going to look at different bond yields and their prices. Yield to maturity is something you've actually done before when we did and calculated yield in the Excel assignment, and we calculated yield in chapter 9 and then again in chapter 11 in particular. So you've done this many times before, finding the yield or the IY for a bond. So I'm not going to go through that in detail. You know that you need to make sure that PV is opposite to FE and opposite to PMT. So PMT and FE are the same sign, but they're opposites to PV as a friendly reminder. A lease. A lease in some ways can act like a bond in the fact that you have regular payments, but a lease is at the where the payments or obligations are at the beginning of the period. So you have to be careful with that. Lease payments. If you lease a car, you're going to pay at the beginning of the month. If you buy or of course rent, if you buy a car, your first payment will be 1 month from the day you buy it. So in this particular case, buy versus lease alternatives. When you purchase something, you get to write it off against CCA, which is what we did in chapter 12. And then you have the cost of borrowing. Operating leases, where you would find the present value of the lease payments, but you get the tax savings at the end. So just like you with student tuition, you pay your student tuition at the beginning of the term, and then at the end of the year, you get a tax refund normally or a tax reduction, depending on your tax situation. But you at least get your taxes reduced, or hopefully you get a refund check. But it's at the end of the year. So you pay your tuition on day one. At the end of the year, you get a tax break. So you can see the net present value is different, that it's slightly better to borrow the money for the cost of the asset, and it will cost you $3,505 as opposed to the lease option, which will cost you $3,600. So there is a slight $95 advantage to borrowing the money versus leasing the funds. And that's what we're going to do in chapter number 16.